comes out. Listen to the show and hear his perspective that is completely different than those that are already out there. I know their world after 10 years in the media, and I also know the staff's world thanks to 3 years in the Manning Center. So subscribe now and hit the bell and get the reminder you need, because you won't want to miss this. All right, welcome to the soon-to-be Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Today we'll go over the coaching carousel a little bit, kind of hit a little bit on bowl options down the line, look at Championship Saturday, and get ready for the weekend as we're about to go dark. Remember to search Apple and Spotify down below for the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. When it begins December 13th, you will have the information that you want and need. You don't want to miss this. Yes, you don't want to miss this. So this is the future Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Stick around. Hey, welcome to the Palmcast with Stephen Willis. We're going to start in a few minutes, but I want to tell you to hit up our social sites, retweet, share, comment, like, do all of that stuff. It can only help us out and it'll make the show even better. But we're getting ready to give you a lot of good Ole Miss information, and I just thought I would tell you that because the Palmcast is starting. Well, it's starting right now. Wait, no, that's a little early. It is starting right about now. All right, I am really going to miss that intro, actually. I'm Stephen Willis. This is the future Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Thank you for joining us. I do want to tell you about Omaha Steaks. The holidays are right around the corner, and finding the perfect gift is tricky. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to send friends and family an unforgettable, guaranteed gift to be loved. Go to omahasteaks.com and enter college into the search bar to order the perfect gift package. Also, I said it again, said it before, I'll say it again. Search the Locked On Ole Miss podcast in your favorite podcatcher to have it, and click notifications for December 13th when we begin. I'm Stephen Willis. I want to talk a little bit about coaching carousel today. And, you know, a lot of people, it doesn't make sense and what's going on, but it's gotten to the point that's just absolutely insane right now in regards to Ole Miss. And I've heard Lane Kiffin's name get mentioned for literally every job that has come open that is a Power 5 level. Now they're worried about unopened jobs, and they're talking about any movement that can happen. And we talked that click-based businesses, which journalists are, we've talked about money being too close to content, and this clickbait thing that came up. This is the way these newspapers stay in business. Lane Kiffin's name as a search topic generates more results than if he's not in there. You can have the same story, put it up twice, put one in the metadata, Lane Kiffin, one without, and the one with Lane Kiffin would outperform the other one. It's the strangest things, but that's the real thing with his name. As a result, the media has absolutely fallen in love with this guy. And not necessarily fallen in love with anything that's gone wrong. They just want to use his name, image, and likeness, hey, NIL, just bring that in, to prop up their own stuff. And in doing that, you end up with a situation where Lane Kiffin to Notre Dame, Lane Kiffin to Oklahoma, and you have fairly reputable people putting him in play for that. Now, you see things like Bruce Feldman doing stuff, and this is, once again, money too close to content, where he's starting to lay the groundwork for a potential Miami if they move on from Manny Diaz down there. And I guess they strike out on Mario Cristobal, whatever's going on. They've already started to do that. Well, Fox has developed a relationship with the ACC. They're trying to weasel in to get the contract from ESPN to also make the ACC part of their family. They're a big reason that the alliance exists. In doing so, they want big name coaches outside of the SEC so that the landscape will level a little bit. They can't see the SEC as kind of a minor league, far and above pro system when all the other leagues are not, because they're essentially locked out. Because the SEC has signed their deal with ESPN, and it's just kind of done. I mean, they've gotten to the point where ESPN, just by getting these former CBS rights, the one game a year or week that used to be on CBS, just getting that is going to add nearly $30 million per team per year. The SEC is a 300-pound gorilla or a 400-pound gorilla, however you want to put it. And Fox absolutely sees this because they're making a legit push for college football right now. They did really well with the Big Ten. They had the Ohio State-Michigan game. I think they had Ohio State-Michigan State. And the Pac-10's down. Everybody has been down that's in their footprint, but they're doing actually fairly well. They benefit a little bit by ESPN not wanting to go away from Lee Corso. Nothing going wrong, but that is contributed to the rise of the Big Noon Kickoff. It's a dumb name, but I mean, it is what it is. And Fox is trying to weasel their way in and get a piece of the expanded college football playoff. Okay, so that is the background I'm doing. In doing that, if they do that, they're laid inroads with the ACC. Bruce Feldman's at Fox talking about Lane Kiffin to Miami. So that's where all the smoke is at the moment. Now, all the smoke for Lane Kiffin to go into other jobs has been all out. 10 of the top 20 all-time winningest jobs in college football history have come open in the last 2 years. Lane Kiffin has not been seriously involved with any of them. I'll say that again. 10 of the top 20 winningest jobs in college football have come open in the last 2 years, and Lane Kiffin has not been seriously involved with any of them. It's at the point where you need to see the media for what they are. They need chaos. They are rooting for Lane Kiffin to leave because they want a Tennessee-like storyline that happened after 2009. This time 12 years ago. That's what they want. Because they want to cover the carnage. They want to cover the destruction. They want to cover the chaos. That's the reason that his name comes up in these coaching searches. Because they're giddy. They want all that. And there's a little bit of fear because he's a good coach. They want him out of the way at a known product that they're already counting as a good program because they don't want Ole Miss to be good. Because you want to talk about the SEC West being a bear? When Ole Miss is really good, that's a problem for other schools. You end up with a $100 million coach like Jimbo finishing 5th in the West. Now, the divisions are about to change, right? The divisions are about to change. I think Alabama and Auburn are going to go over to the East. Missouri's going to come over to the West, and we're going to add Oklahoma and Texas. That's how I think it's going to look. I think it's going to be 2 8-team divisions, and there's going to be no permanent cross-division rivals because if you look at it, all of the traditional rivals are already in place. So, the East will be the bear then. Alabama and Auburn moving over and Missouri coming to the West. Oklahoma has to get right in a hurry with the SEC. They're not ready for SEC football. They got physically manhandled by Oklahoma State. Absolutely. We joke with Corey Burton on SEC After Dark all the time. Oklahoma is Charmin extra soft. They're 4-ply at the moment. They need to change that in a hurry. They're going through a lot of the same stuff that Texas A&M went through whenever they came into the league. To where if they didn't have Johnny Manziel playing quarterback and Cliff Kingsbury dialing it up and all the spread stuff that was new and different, they would have been in a lot of trouble. And then whenever Johnny Manziel left, they just fell off a cliff. They end up bringing Jimbo in. The offensive and defensive line gets built up. And there you go. Texas A&M looks like an SEC team. 5th in the West SEC team, but an SEC team. Texas, they've got more stuff than just Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma is going through some things at the moment, but Texas is really going through some things. Arkansas is kind of grown up. Ole Miss is up at 10 wins. LSU, Brian Kelly is going to have LSU there, even though no assistants came with him to Baton Rouge. There's a potential, not saying it's going to happen, there's a potential for a Steve Sloan type situation in Baton Rouge if the special coaches were on the staff and not the head man. The head man's the special coach. It doesn't really matter who you bring in. But if there was a couple of assistants that were actually leading the charge down below, you could have a 7-5, 8-4 type team at LSU, and they're not going to be down with $100 million for that. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Anyway, my favorite holiday moment with Omaha Steaks is, honestly, I got a cooler at work. At work we give out gifts and everything, and I got a cooler at work of all kinds of meats and all the steaks, and we ended up having a cookout because I'm down here in Florida, so this is still cookout weather. It might be 30 degrees up in Mississippi or up in Tennessee, but it gets down to about 60 here. And, we go out there cooking out, having fun, and it tastes so good. I mean, the meat is just absolutely tender and wonderful. So the holidays are right around the corner, and the perfect gift can be tricky. So Omaha Steaks does make it easy to send friends and families that unbelievable gift guaranteed to be loved. Go to omahasteaks.com and enter college into the search bar to order the perfect gift package. For $99.99, you'll get 24 entries like the world-famous bacon-wrapped filet mignons, chicken breasts, sides, desserts, and much, much more. When you use the code COLLEGE, you also get 8 additional Omaha Steaks burgers free with your orders. That's free hamburgers there. We have all heard the reports about shortages and shipping delays, so don't wait. Order the perfect gift package today at omahasteaks.com and you'll get 8 free burgers. Achieve gifting greatness with Omaha Steaks. Incredible flavor, incredible value, and 100% guaranteed. omahasteaks.com, keyword college. And if you look at that, I think it's 4 bacon wrapped filet mignons, 4 chicken breasts, 12 burgers, 4 gourmet jumbo franks, 4 scalloped potatoes, 4 apple tartlets, and 1 signature seasoning. So that's pretty good. All right. Moving on to the bowl feeling. A lot of people like to mess with me on Twitter because I've been very anti-Oklahoma State over the last week and a half or so. And it's not really anti-Oklahoma State as far as them, anything dealing with Oklahoma State. It's just anti-wanting to play Oklahoma State because Ole Miss has played Oklahoma State in 2003, played them again in 2009, played them in 2015, and if you do your math, if you're like sequencing what's going on, they're due to play them this year. It's like a cosmic thing that they are due to do that. So they have a really good team. They have a good defensive team. If Ole Miss plays Oklahoma State, it would be in the Sugar. That would mean Oklahoma State lost to, or did not make the playoffs for some reason. Maybe Alabama beat Georgia and Cincinnati won their championship game, and then Oklahoma State is sitting right there at 5. So Oklahoma State goes to the Sugar, and in that scenario, Ole Miss would go to the Sugar as well. And Oklahoma State's defense, you look at their defense, they're very complex defensively. They're absolutely very complex. And doing so, the more complex they are, the more tempo could be used against them. And seeing that, I think Ole Miss against Oklahoma State would match up fairly favorably. Oklahoma State is a spread team passing the ball. That'd be good for our defense. The drop 8 stuff that honestly Baylor started doing in the Big 12. So Oklahoma State has seen it before. This won't be anything new. But they have a chance to match up really well. Defensively, the tempo will kind of eliminate what Oklahoma State can do. They have to play simple. They get the boots in the ground and play. Is Oklahoma State good enough to do that and match up against Ole Miss and shut Ole Miss down? Or do they need complex schemes to do that? Because everybody knows about Jim Knowles and his defense at Oklahoma State as being extremely complex. Now, if Ole Miss gets the fiesta against Notre Dame, you have a situation, the offense is pretty similar to what Tulane runs, honestly. Chip Long and Tommy Reese kind of do a little bit of the same stuff. Notre Dame, as you know, struggled with Florida State earlier in the year. They lost. They beat Toledo, and they lost to Cincinnati. This is not a playoff resume they have put together. They've won 11 games, but that may be a result of scheduling more than anything, because Toledo really probably should have got them. Florida State probably should have got them, but they did not. So it's a team that Ole Miss would probably, if they played them, it would look more like the Mississippi State game. I think Ole Miss is going to use tempo. I think they're going to use rapid tempo. One of the best weapons that they have, against defense are tempo. You do the tempo, do it as fast as possible, because it forces the defense to play simple. And when that happens, you can match up athletes on the outside. You can work on mismatches. The defense becomes more predictable. Now, these defenses and these teams that Ole Miss is lining up against will have nearly a month to prepare for the Rebs. Now, they won't prepare for a month, but they can prepare for the month. And in doing so, they're going to come up with a plan to deal with tempo. Now, the first drive of the game, when Ole Miss goes out there and starts running it, they're going to surprise whoever they play against. So drive 2 and drive 3 will be the important drives of the day, because I expect Ole Miss to go down the field honestly and score a touchdown on that first drive. It'll be imperative for the defense to keep Ole Miss from getting that first down on that first drive, because that's a way that you combat tempo. So it's going to be interesting to see with those happening. I'd like to see an Ole Miss Michigan State game as well. Kenneth Walker III against that Ole Miss defense, and Michigan State's pass defense is pretty abhorrent. It would be a high-scoring, fun matchup. I'm not interested in seeing Ole Miss versus Pittsburgh. I do not want to see Ole Miss versus Oklahoma State. And Ray Moore says his Music City projection is Missouri versus Penn State. I like the Penn State pick. I am all about the Penn State pick. I think that it's going to end up potentially, if Arkansas, this is going to sound absolutely weird, but this is true. If Arkansas does not get the Citrus, I think Arkansas falls to the Music City. And it could be an Arkansas-Penn State game. And that would be a pretty fantastic matchup and a great matchup for the city of Nashville. Absolutely. So, that's probably something we're going to talk about tomorrow. Again, remember, next week we are going dark. There are going to be no shows on the channel. I'm going to be at Disney. I'm going to be on vacation. But we're going to come back on the 13th, and the Locked On Ole Miss podcast will kick off, and everything will start then. I like the North Carolina versus Wake in the Peach Bowl, and then you would have an Ole Miss versus Michigan State in the Fiesta Bowl, and Ole Miss versus Oklahoma State, or Baylor, in the Sugar Bowl. This is the one thing I don't know. Now, if Baylor beats Oklahoma State, okay? Let's say Baylor beats Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. I think Baylor goes from 9 to 6, and Oklahoma State drops down to 7. So maybe Baylor becomes the Sugar Bowl opponent. Oklahoma State could go to the Fiesta Bowl, in which case, I'm not a fan of going to the Fiesta Bowl. But the Sugar Bowl would then be in play. There's some unknowns right now, and there's about 16 different scenarios in the playoff that's going to affect the Access Bowls. Then you add in championship games and things like that. We're going to get into championship weekend right after the break. But first, I want to tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website or to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, to our favorite Vegas casino games, Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, switch over and talk a little bit about championship weekend. Should be a lot of fun. We'll talk about Georgia and Alabama last, but I'm genuinely looking forward to Michigan State and Iowa, Michigan versus Iowa. That could be a fun game. That feels like a game that Michigan was so up for Ohio State last week. How are they going to get up that level at Iowa? Can Iowa generate enough offense to be a threat? And Josh Gaddis has done a fantastic job of creating that Jim Harbaugh power offense out of these spread formations. It's the same offense, essentially, that Jim Harbaugh was running 4 years ago. But Gaddis has put it in these spread concepts, and they do formations, and they're extremely physical. And it's a modern version of that Jim Harbaugh offense, and that's just kind of impressive to see. Iowa has a pretty good defense. Can they generate the offense enough to be a threat? If Iowa wins that game, you have something where Michigan gets knocked out of the playoffs. There's no ACC team. There's no Pac-12 team. No teams from the alliance would make the playoffs. Think about that for a second. No teams from the alliance would make the playoffs. Absolutely nuts. And that is going to tell you why there's no agreement right now for a 12-team playoff expansion. Because certain Power 5 conferences that I will not name are demanding automatic qualifiers for the 12-team playoff. The SEC just wants the best 12 teams because they know they could get 3, 4, 5 teams in there. But if you're demanding automatic qualifiers, maybe you're not in a very good position. You could be somebody like the ACC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12. I mean, you could have a situation where the Big 12 in a 12-team playoffs this year would have had 3 teams. Well, if you count Cincinnati or Houston, 4 teams. And you have the Pac-12 that if Utah wins the game, they might have 1. In a 12-team playoff. I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'm talking about a 12-team playoff. We're not even talking about the 4-team that could legitimately, if everything goes haywire, be 2 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams, which honestly, that's about what it should be anyway. But if we're going to feign parity and balance, do a 12-team playoff. Do a 16-team playoff. Games on college campuses. Because if they did a 12-team playoff, Ole Miss would be preparing at number 8 to host the largest, most important game on campus in Ole Miss history. That's what they would be preparing. They'd be playing at this point, I guess it's Baylor at this point, would be the road team coming to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium for a round 1 game. Ray, I like that one. I like the Pitt versus Mississippi State in the Gator Bowl. That could be a really fun game. So that's what I'm looking for in the Big Ten title game. The Pac-12 title game, I expect Utah to kind of boat race Oregon again. And Oregon's going to drop down and drop out of the top 12. Utah is going to go to the Rose Bowl and play either Michigan or Ohio State or Iowa. I mean, who knows what Iowa would do. Iowa might have that day. ULL versus Appy State. It's a game that everybody's expecting Appy State to do really well because Billy Napier's leaving. But the fact that Billy Napier demanded to coach in this game, I'm kind of tempted to go with ULL in this one. Cincinnati versus Houston. First of all, don't be fooled by this line. Houston has a team good enough to beat Cincinnati. They don't want them to beat Cincinnati because Cincinnati with a loss would be out of the playoff. They would drop down to 9 or 10. They would free fall like a rock. So they want Cincinnati to win. That's kind of why the public is betting on Cincinnati here, because it's kind of a better than they are type situation. But Houston and Cincinnati are both really good programs. And just understand that Houston can win that game. Clayton Tune, Dana Holgerson, the whole Houston Cougars, they lost the first game against Texas Tech. They won the rest. So they're on a 10-game winning streak or 11-game winning streak right now. Cincinnati's on a 12-game winning streak. There's not much difference between the two. Should be a fun game, but the problem is that game is on opposite of the SEC championship. Now, if you look at the ACC championship, Pitt and Wake Forest, it's a game I don't trust Wake Forest. Wake Forest gave up 56 points to Army. They won that game like 70-56, and everybody is enthralled by Wake Forest's offense. And I have trouble seeing that. Not when Kenny Pickett and everything is going to be. I think they're going to be able to deal a little bit. I think Pitt's going to be able to pull that out. It's weird seeing an ACC championship game between Pitt and Wake Forest. No dominant team for the first time since the playoffs started. So this should be a fun game. It should be a fun game and worth watching. I think it's the night game Saturday night. Now, if you look at the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State, go Pokes, against Baylor. It's a game that Baylor's a really good team. They remind me a little bit of when Nick Saban went to LSU from Michigan State. Dave Aranda's team reminds me of Michigan State when Saban was there. And that's a compliment. There's still some stuff that needs to be learned. There's some stuff that needs to be ironed out, but they executed at such a high level. And if they don't run tempo and don't use the quarterback run game, I don't know if they're good enough to beat Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State is going to get exotic in this game, and it is what it is. But it's a game that I fully expect Oklahoma State to win. Maybe I'm just rooting for it because I want them to get into the playoff, because I want them off the board when it comes to bowl selection Saturday. The hilarious thing is all chaos breaks out and the first round of the playoff is Ole Miss versus Oklahoma State. That would be me eating my words, but that's probably not going to happen. Ole Miss's ceiling, by the way, is probably 5th. There's not really a path for Ole Miss to get into the playoff at this point. And if we look at the final game of the weekend, we will talk about Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. If Alabama's defense needs to hold Georgia to 10 or fewer points to win this game. We've seen Alabama's offense struggle, especially without Jamison Williams in the game. They struggled mightily against Auburn on Saturday, and they had trouble with Auburn's defensive line, which does not bode well for this one. But understand this, Alabama they were overlooking Auburn. Nobody will admit it. Nobody will say a thing, but there was holding penalties. They played sloppy. They were overlooking Auburn. So the Alabama that you see against Georgia is not going to be the same Alabama that you saw against Auburn. That's just the way it works. Kids can get up about 3 or 4 times a year at most. So Alabama needs their defense to hold Georgia's offense to 10 points. And I do think it's been a little bit of a trap to play Stetson Bennett over JT Daniels. So that'll be worth following. Alabama needs to do lightning tempo offensively somehow. They need to repeat plays. They need to do all they do to try and go as quickly as possible to get to the twos on Georgia's defensive line. Alabama's played Texas A&M and Auburn's defensive line. That's the second and third best defensive line in the SEC, and their offense has struggled both times. I expect Georgia to kind of go after it. They saw that blitzes affect Bryce Young. I expect Georgia to go at it. It's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. I'm expecting a 17-10, 20-10 type game with the Georgia Bulldogs pulling it out at the end. It's going to be well worth watching, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. Don't forget to subscribe and search on Apple, Spotify, and all your podcatchers. The Locked On Ole Miss podcast starts December 13th. And it's going to be real similar to this. I've been doing the Locked On script all week this week with whatever thing's going on. So it's going to be a lot like this show. So search for those, sign up for notifications. And again, thank you for making the future Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your net gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. I do want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us. This is going to be a daily thing in the future. Starting on the 13th and everything, this is going to be a daily thing. I do want to thank everybody for all that. Ray, save some of your bowl picks until tomorrow. We'll do it again, and we'll get them all in. So I'll see you tomorrow, and of course, hotty toddy.